Facebook. Anyway, so I basically have been teaching for quite some time now. It's been around 17 years, if I really count it right. I started teaching immediately after I passed my SSC, and that was back in 2001. I had my SSC in 2001, and since then I have been teaching. And academically, I have been teaching for the last 4 years, to be exact. I've been with a number of different schools in Dhaka. And even before that, during my undergrad days at the university, I should tell you that I did actually my graduation and post-graduation, both from the University of Rajshahi. And luckily for me, I was a student at the Department of English, and I spent around 7 years at the university. I took a little longer to finish because I had readmission. So even during my undergrad days, I used to work with Safe Fruits. I had my first job with them. I worked with them for 2.5 years. And then I worked with Mentors for almost the same period. And after that, I worked with the British Council for a year as a teacher's trainer. So that was a very different experience I had. Because with Safe Fruits and Mentors, I used to work as an IELTS trainer, to be honest. And I had a kind of fluke-like score in IELTS, which is, I had a 9 out of 9 in all the 4 modules. 9 in listening, 9 in speaking, 9 in reading, and 9 in writing. And that was not a fluke in one sense, because I actually worked as a trainer for almost 5 years. And then before I took the test, I gave myself 6 months. So from that perspective, it's not a fluke either. And currently, I'm working with London Grace International School. It's a school that has been there for 24 years in Dhaka. My school is very old, and as luck would have it, I'm the vice principal at my school. Actually, I'm coming to have back pain these days, so I might sit for some time. So I hope you understand that.
Yes.
That shouldn't be an issue. So I'm currently working with a school, and this school has been operating for 24 years now. And it's hard to believe, but the fact is, yes, it's a little hard to believe, but the fact is, I'm a vice principal at my school. I'm the youngest vice principal in Dhaka. That's what my principal says, because nobody normally becomes a vice principal at the age of 33. But I went on to become a vice principal. And I don't know if my principal regrets the decision, but the way she behaves doesn't look like she regrets. So I really was very interested to meet you. So there's a very obvious reason for that, which is, I love encouraging people. I love motivating people in the first place. And that's because I almost share a similar background to which you belong to now. Like, I started in a primary school back in the 90s, when I often had to sit on the floor. Because if on certain days I would be late for school and I would not have a place to sit on, so I would directly sit on the floor. And from there on, I went on to study in high school. Okay, luckily for me, things were a bit different there, so I didn't have to sit on the floor anymore. But it's still too crowded. You know the experience. That's my friend from school and a very popular photographer. And I went on to study in a college, a local college from there on, and I had my ASSC 2004. And after that, I went to study at the University of Rajshahi. So the fact that I want to tell you is, I share almost a similar background that you have, that you belong to, or that you're from. So I understand how hard it must be for you. And I do understand how difficult it is for people like us to learn a different language, not just English. It could be French or Spanish or whatever. Understood? So it's very difficult, and you don't really get the right guidance and the right motivation. Yes, I'm not a motivational speaker by profession like Sulaiman Shupan or somebody else you can name. But being a teacher myself, I feel motivation is a very big part of teaching. And in fact, at times, I feel it is almost as good as teaching something academic. So motivation has to be there. So I just, kind of had an eye on the activities that were going on, and I personally know Mithu and Nahida. She's like a sister to me. And I'm personally thankful to her for naming my literary magazine, Niharika. We have a literary magazine of which I'm the editor, and she gave the name. So the sense of gratitude is there to some extent. But yes, I just had an idea that perhaps I can just come and meet you and just share my own experience, because I did something which you can't probably think of doing, because you think differently. Now, in the first part, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just share some experiences from my life, how it all started, and what I did, and what the result was. The experience that I'm going to share with you now is something that I still remember, and I basically belong to a family where my parents, if you think of my parents, don't think that my parents did their PhD, certainly not. My parents started up to class 8. I'm being very honest with you. Perhaps not everyone will say that my parents studied up to class 8 with so much of pride as I am doing. But the fact doesn't change. The fact is a fact. So my parents studied up to class 8, and I was back in the 90s, to be exact, in 1998, I was in class 8. And my father used to be out of the country for 2.5 years. He was in Singapore, and I used to live with my mother and my sister back home. And we had a big playground behind the house. So I used to play a lot of cricket back in school. I wasn't that good a player like my friend, but I had the zeal to play. So I used to play a lot of cricket. And it was like I used to go out early in the morning at around 8, immediately after breakfast. And then I would go on playing till 1 and 1:30. And then there would be a gap for lunch hour, because nobody would offer me the lunch. So I would just come back home, have my lunch after a fashion, and then I would go back again. Thank you. And then I would go back again and start playing. So that's something that I used to do back in 1998. I was just starting class 8. And I still remember I had a grammar book with a red cover. We all read grammar books. You all do, I'm sure. So I had a grammar with a red cover, and I remember from that I just memorized one English sentence, one particular sentence, which is, I don't believe you. And I knew when I had to use that and what that would mean. So what I started doing, I started using that very often in my speech, almost to the point of making it a cliche. So I was playing one afternoon with my friends in the back here. We had, like I said, we had a big playground behind the house. And the house that we used to live in back then, that actually belonged to somebody who used to work in the police. So the man would often come and pay us a visit, just to see how things were going. So he was on such random visit, and something happened which led me to tell my friend, I don't believe you. So my friend, just kept quiet for a while, and the owner of the house, he overheard me telling my friend so. So what he did later on, he came up and he asked me in English, why? Because I told my friend to walk down to school, and I would be talking to myself, and naturally, even if you look at me now, I can't actually be talking with a very stand still look, like my hands are moving, my lips are moving. So there is every possible indication of me being alive and me being able to speak. You can't just stand somewhere and talk like a statue, like the statue of Ozymandias, half sunk in the sand. Anyway, so I used to talk, and often on certain days, since I would be walking down to school alone, on certain days the shopkeepers nearby, some of them would often ask me to stop, and they would say, who do you talk to? You seem to be talking to somebody, but there is no one with you. Do you talk to genie or spirit or something like that? But I didn't care. I didn't care because I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew that the result would come someday. So that's something that I just kept on doing. And like I said, after 3 years, and that to 3 hours a day, and I never missed out, not even on Eid days. So I never took a leave from this. So the fact that I had parents starting up to class 8, and I was in a school where we had no English teachers, trust me. I was in a school where we had no assigned English teachers as such. Like at my school, I teach English, and I have another teacher for math from the University of Dhaka. So we have assigned teachers for particular subjects. But back then, and still the picture is more or less the same. It might just have improved to some extent, I'm not sure. But back then, we didn't really have an